what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy that. I want to turn to a piece by Glenn West of 247 Sports. As, you know, we've talked a lot about this LSU football team, and I was saying this yesterday on some Alabama radio, right, that if this were a video game and you were playing and LSU was a boss that you were playing against, right, the interior of this defensive line would be this giant, glowing, weak spot, shoot me here, right? Like if you play the Resident, whatever, any games. You played a lot of games in the day where you got this big, insane boss, and as a, you could argue maybe potentially somewhat lazy game design function, they make it very obvious where you should hit them for maximum damage. That is LSU on the interior defensive line. But it does not extend out to the edge. And I thought that Glenn had a great piece where he kind of started to break some of this down, where as much as we lament the interior, the edge has a lot of potential, and it could be exciting. And we'll get to the players, but it actually starts with Kevin Peoples. And when I went to the Senior Bowl, I was talking to people about a lot of the hires that LSU had made, right? And I was talking about Peoples. And I remember when we originally talked about Peoples being hired, it was right on the heels of the Blake Baker news. Peoples also coming over from Mizzou. And it had the feeling of like Peoples just being like, not also ran, that's not the right term, but just, you know, Blake Baker gets the headlines. Peoples was like an addendum to the story, just kind of lumped in. Now, I was taken aback when I was talking to others at the Senior Bowl, and I had multiple people tell me, no, like, look, man, Kevin Peoples is a dog. Like, he's that guy. He is one of those great up-and-coming coaches. People really believe in him in terms of his potential and what he'll go on to do. And then you start to look into it, and yeah, the numbers actually support it, right? So I feel like I misled our audience on this show because I didn't give Peoples his flowers as I should have when you hired him. It's actually a very, very good hire for this LSU defense. In fact, at the time, I wasn't even aware that Peoples was a Broyles Award semifinalist. And remember, the Broyles Award last year, the Broyles Award, it's a hard word to say, goes to the top assistant coach in the entire nation. It's rare to see somebody who's coaching just, you know, the edge rushers and outside linebackers make it that far. And yet he was. And if you look at Mizzou from a production standpoint, it's a Mizzou football team that was top 20 in the countries in TFLs and 12th in sacks in the entire nation. So you combine Kevin Peoples with a room that has talent. Now, I know it may not feel like the most exciting because of what you saw last year, but let's look at Savion Jones specifically. Because whether it's Harold Perkins last season, whether it's Mekhi Wingo last season, whether it's Mason Smith, the list goes on and on. There are so many players on that defense that we had seen earlier in their career be better than they were last season. And maybe nobody represented that more so. I mean, certainly Wingo would be up there. Perkins probably the ultimate example. But the hidden one is Savion Jones. In that in 2022, when he was a part-time backup, he actually put up better numbers than he did in 2023 as a full-time starter. If you remember coming into the year, and if you go back to like 2022 film, when we would watch it, Savion Jones kind of popped pretty consistently and jumped off the screen pretty consistently. I was very excited for him. And then, you know, when you have Harold Perkins taking the step back that he did last year, it's just that the lamentations over Jones kind of get lost in the mix a bit. But the point of all of this is to say that I think we have enough of a body of evidence to say that the coaching was a net drag on these players last year, and at a lot of these positions, you had guys look worse than they probably actually are, right? That there's a lot of untapped potential at these positions, whether it's a secondary, linebacker, edge. Interior line is still a problem, right? because I mean, certainly like any other position, you're going to have some untapped potential. And certainly great coaching is going to improve any group. That said, that is still a crew where I don't think you have as much as you do at linebacker, secondary, or on the edge. So it's not just Savion Jones. I remember Paris Shan. He had some very nice moments last year. Gabriel Relaford will be joining this team early. Dylan Carpenter. I don't know much about Dylan, actually. But that's good. Those are going to be your edge defenders. Really, I'm looking at Shand, Jones, and Relaford, and maybe Carpenter surprised me and proves me wrong. And then you talk about that jackbacker who's going to be just as involved in the edge and getting after the passer and playing on the outside there. And you got Braden Swinson, who was maybe your most consistent pass rusher last season. You got Deshaun Womack, who you could see the talent. Now, he had some low freshman moments, no doubt, and he wasn't the panacea to the problems that some made him out to be last year, but the potential is massive. And year number 2 is when we want to see him take that huge step forward, especially now when teamed up with a coach as talented as Kevin People. So you got Swinson, Womack, Jackson Howard, Clutch Cobbins, and all of a sudden you have a group that I feel could be pretty damn strong and not a weakness. So when people say the D line is a huge glaring weakness, an Achilles heel on this entire LSU team, which I think it is. Remember, we are just talking about the interior. I think full sunshine pump and bob here. I think you should be pretty pumped up on the potential of these edge rushers, of this jack group, this edge group, this DN group, and the combination of these players and Kevin Peoples. I think this is going to be a productive group. Now, unfortunately, it is all a bit symbiotic, right? Where great interior pass rush sets up the edge. If you can push the pocket from the interior, well, then a quarterback can't step up, and then everybody benefits, right? And it's the same thing with linebacker play. Great interior play keeps offensive linemen off the middle linebackers, allows them to roam, allows them to make plays. So there are still problems that need to be fixed there, but I like what LSU has on the edge.
No, I did too. And you were talking about like all the depth they have, all the young guys coming up. That can help you move pieces, right? We were talking about guys cross-training inside and outside. A Paris Shand, a Savion Jones. They can move inside and help you with that interior pass rush you were talking about because you don't have bodies there. But because you have so much talent on the outside, you can afford to lose some of those bigger body defensive ends and move them in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And that's probably something that you're going to have to explore doing. And I mean, Savion Jones got pretty big last year. I wouldn't mind seeing him get a little lighter again, but whatever the staff is going to tell him, that's fine. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.